Captain Jake Martinez sat in his command chair watching the stars through the main window of Earth Defense Station. The space station orbited around the moon, keeping watch over Earth and the solar system. Jake had been doing this job for 5 years now. Most days were quiet and boring. The year was 2387. Earth had joined the big group of alien planets called the Galactic Federation over 200 years ago. But most aliens still stayed away from humans. They called Earth a death world because it was so dangerous. They thought humans were scary because they came from such a harsh planet. Jake did not mind being left alone. Humans had built a good life in their corner of space. They had colonies on Mars and the outer planets. Trade with other worlds was limited but steady. Most importantly, there had been no wars for over a century. The morning started like any other. Jake was drinking his coffee and reading reports when Lieutenant Commander Lisa Chen rushed into the command center. Her face was pale and worried. "Captain, you need to see this right now," Lisa said. She was the station's chief science officer and rarely got excited about anything. "What is it?" Jake asked, setting down his coffee cup. "We just received a distress signal, but this is not like any signal we have ever seen before. It broke through all our security systems and appeared on every screen at once." Jake followed Lisa to the main communication console. The screen showed strange symbols and patterns that seemed to move and shift. The message was written in multiple languages, including human English. SOS to all Federation worlds. This is the Zalani Republic requesting immediate military assistance. Our worlds are under attack by an unknown hostile force. We call them the Ravagers. They are destroying everything. Our weapons cannot stop them. 12 worlds have already fallen. Please help us. We are running out of time. Jake read the message twice. The Zalani were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful people. They were brilliant scientists and engineers, but they had no military. They had not fought a war in over 1,000 years. "How did this message reach us?" Jake asked. "The Zalani Republic is 50 light years away. That is what worries me," Lisa said. "This signal used quantum encryption methods that should be impossible. It bypassed every communication barrier in the galaxy. Someone was very desperate to make sure this message got through." Jake studied the strange symbols on the screen. Some of them looked like star maps. Others seemed to show battle damage and destroyed cities. "Have you analyzed the data they sent with the message?" "I have been working on it for the past hour," Lisa said. "The results are not good. These Ravagers appear to be some kind of silicon-based life form. They eat metal and energy. Every time they consume something, they get stronger and bigger." Lisa brought up images on the screen. They showed massive creatures that looked like a cross between insects and machines. They had multiple arms with cutting tools and seemed to move in organized groups. "Look at this," Lisa continued. "The Ravagers attack in waves. They consume all the metal from buildings, ships, and equipment. Then they use that material to build more of themselves. It is like a virus that spreads by eating everything made of metal." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "What about the Federation military? Surely they are responding to this threat." "That is the problem," Lisa said. "I checked the Federation communication networks. They have already tried to help. 3 different Federation fleets engaged the Ravagers over the past month. All 3 fleets were completely destroyed." Jake stood up and walked to the main window. Earth looked peaceful and blue below them. It was hard to imagine that somewhere in the galaxy, entire worlds were being destroyed. "What makes these Ravagers so dangerous?" he asked. "They adapt," Lisa said. "Every weapon the Federation used against them only worked once. Energy weapons get absorbed and make them stronger. Kinetic weapons get deflected by their armor. They learn from every attack and become immune to it within hours." An alarm started beeping on the communication console. Jake and Lisa hurried back to see what was happening. "Incoming priority message from Earth Command," the computer announced. Admiral Ben Parker's face appeared on the screen. He looked older. Then Jake remembered, with new lines around his eyes and gray in his hair. "Captain Martinez, I need you to prepare for an emergency briefing. Something big is happening." "We just received the Zalani distress call," Jake said. "Is this about the Ravagers?" "Yes, it is. The Galactic Federation Council met in emergency session 3 hours ago. The situation is worse than we thought. The Ravagers have now destroyed 15 worlds. They are moving toward the core Federation systems. Jake felt his stomach drop. What does the Federation plan to do? Admiral Parker was quiet for a moment. They have tried everything, Jake. Every conventional military strategy has failed. The Federation is out of options. So what happens now? They are turning to us, Admiral Parker said. For the first time in over a century, the Galactic Federation is formally requesting human military assistance. Jake could not believe what he was hearing. They want us to fight these things? They are desperate, Jake. The Federation Council spent 200 years keeping us at arm's length because they were afraid of us. Now they need exactly what they feared. Lisa stepped forward. Admiral, do we know why the Federation thinks humans can succeed where they failed? Because we come from a death world, Admiral Parker said. Every day on Earth, our ancestors had to deal with things trying to kill them. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, other humans. We learned to fight dirty, to be creative, to never give up. Jake understood. The same qualities that made other aliens fear humans might be exactly what was needed to stop the Ravagers. What are your orders, Admiral? Jake asked. I am assembling a task force. We will have ships, ground forces, and our best scientists. This will be the largest human military operation since the Federation Wars. When do we leave? Preparation starts immediately. The Zilani Republic has maybe 2 weeks before the Ravagers reach their homeworld. We need to be there before that happens. Admiral Parker's expression became serious. Jake, I want you to understand something. The entire galaxy will be watching us. If we succeed, humanity will finally be seen as protectors instead of threats. If we fail, billions of innocent people will die. Jake looked at Lisa, who nodded back at him. They both understood what this meant. We will not fail, Admiral, Jake said. I know you will not. Earth Command out. The screen went dark. Jake and Lisa stood in silence for a moment, thinking about what they had just learned. So, Lisa said finally, it looks like the Deathworlders are going to war. Jake nodded and looked back at Earth through the window. Soon, human ships would be leaving the safety of their solar system to fight an enemy that had defeated everyone else. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy would see what humans could really do when they had to fight for something that mattered. Colonel Amy Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the battleship UES Titan, watching Earth get smaller through the viewport. She had never been this far from home before. In 3 hours, they would enter hyperspace and begin the journey to Zilani space. They say, Titan was the largest warship Earth had ever built. It carried 2,000 crew members and enough weapons to level a small moon. Following behind were 12 smaller ships filled with Marines, pilots, and scientists. This was humanity's answer to the Ravager threat. Colonel, all ships report ready for hyperspace jump, said Lieutenant Commander Tony Blake. He was her tactical officer and had spent the last week studying everything they knew about the Ravagers. Very good. Signal the fleet to enter hyperspace. On my mark, Amy said. The stars outside suddenly stretched into long lines of light. Then everything went dark except for the swirling colors of hyperspace. They were now traveling faster than light toward a war that could decide the fate of the galaxy. Amy walked through the ship's corridors, checking on her people. In the weapons bay, Sergeant Major Kate Sullivan was teaching Marines how to use new equipment designed specifically for fighting the Ravagers. The key is not to fight them like we would fight humans, Kate was saying to a group of young soldiers. These things are basically living machines. They think differently than we do. Amy stopped to listen. Kate had fought in Earth's last internal conflicts 30 years ago. She knew more about warfare than anyone else on the ship. Remember, conventional weapons do not work on them for long, Kate continued. They adapt too quickly. We need to be creative. We need to think like humans, not like the neat and organized Federation forces. One of the Marines raised his hand. Sergeant Major, what makes us different from the Federation military? Kate smiled grimly. Son, they fight wars like they are, playing chess. Everything has rules and patterns. We fight wars like we are trying to survive. We cheat, we lie, we use whatever works. Amy nodded approvingly and continued her inspection. In the science lab, Dr. Pete Williams was working with a team of engineers on something that looked like a combination of a bomb and a computer. How? Is the project coming along, Doctor? Amy asked. Pete looked up from his work. His hair was messy and he had dark circles under his eyes from working too long. We are making progress, Colonel. The theory is sound, but we will not know if it works until we test it on actual Ravagers. Explain it to me again in simple terms. The Ravagers eat metal and energy to grow stronger. But what if we give them something that makes them sick instead of stronger? We are building devices that look like normal ship components but are actually poisonous to silicon-based life forms. Amy understood. It was like putting poison in food that looked perfectly good. Clever. How many can you make, Quill? Should have 50 units ready by the time we reach Zilani space. Not enough to win the war, but enough to test our theory. The journey to Zilani space took 3 weeks. During that time, the human forces studied their enemy and prepared for battle. Unlike the Federation's approach of trying to overwhelm the Ravagers with superior firepower, the humans were planning something completely different. Amy spent hours in strategy meetings with her officers. They looked at every failed Federation attack and tried to understand why conventional tactics did not work. The problem is that everyone keeps trying to fight the Ravagers head-on, Tony said during one meeting. Energy weapons, kinetic weapons, nuclear weapons. They all failed because the Ravagers just absorb the damage and get stronger. So what do you suggest? Amy asked. We do not fight them directly. We make them fight themselves. Kate leaned forward with interest. Explain that. Look at their behavior patterns, Tony said, bringing up data on the main screen. They operate as a hive mind. They coordinate perfectly because they all share the same thoughts. But what happens if we disrupt that coordination? Amy studied the tactical data. The Ravagers did seem to move as one giant organism rather than individual creatures. You think we can confuse them? More than that, I think we can make them panic. On the 20th day of their journey, they received a message from Zilani space. The aliens were still alive, but barely. 2 more worlds had fallen to the Ravagers. Finally, the Titan and her escort ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zilani Republic. Amy had seen pictures of alien worlds before, but seeing them in person was different. The Zilani homeworld was beautiful, with crystal cities that sparkled in the light of their blue sun. Incoming transmission from the surface, the communications officer announced. The main screen showed a tall, graceful alien with features that looked like they were carved from precious stones. This was Amy's first time seeing a Zilani in person. I'm Ambassador Thylon of the Zilani Republic, the alien said. His voice had a musical quality that was pleasant to hear. We welcome the human fleet, though I must admit we are uncertain what to expect. Amy stepped forward. I am Colonel Rodriguez, commanding the Human Task Force. We are here to help you fight the Ravagers. We are grateful, but I must warn you. 3 Federation fleets have already tried to help us. All were destroyed. These creatures seem impossible to defeat. Ambassador, with respect, the Federation fleets were not human fleets. We fight differently. Thylon looked confused. I do not understand. War, is it not? Amy smiled. No, Ambassador. That is exactly the mistake everyone else has made. A few hours later, Amy and her senior officers met with the Zilani military leadership in the Crystal Capital City. The Zilani commander, Veltar, showed them recordings of previous battles. Amy watched the footage with growing understanding. The Federation forces had attacked in neat formations using standard military doctrine. They had followed all the rules of civilized warfare, and they had been slaughtered. Your people fight very bravely, Amy told Veltar, but you fight like you expect your enemy to follow rules. Are there not rules to warfare? Veltar asked. Laws that govern how conflicts are conducted? Kate laughed, but not in a mean way. Commander, where we come from, the only rule is to survive. Everything else is just suggestions. Amy pulled up her own tactical plans. We are not going to attack the Ravagers directly. We are going to trick them. The Zilani officers looked at each other with concern. Thylon spoke up. Trick them? But surely military honor requires direct confrontation. Ambassador, military honor is a luxury for people who are not about to be extinct, Amy said firmly. The Ravagers do not care about honor. They care about consuming everything in their path. So we are going to give them exactly what they want, but not in the way they expect it. Tony activated a holographic display showing the human battle plan. We will make the Ravagers think they are winning. We will let them consume our ships and equipment, but everything they eat will be a trap. Veltar studied the plan with growing amazement. This is not warfare as we understand it. This is deception and trickery. Exactly, Amy said. And that is why it might actually work. Pete stepped forward. Commander, we have been studying the Ravager biology. They have never encountered anything like human creativity before. They adapt to direct threats, but they do not know how to adapt to lies. The Zilani were quiet for a long moment. Finally, Thylon spoke. The Federation Council warned us that humans were dangerous because you come from a death world. Now I think I understand what they meant. Amy nodded. Earth taught us that sometimes the only way to win is to fight dirty. We are very good at fighting dirty. As the meeting ended and the Zilani left, Amy gathered her officers for one final briefing. Tomorrow we begin the real work, she said. Remember, we are not just fighting for the Zilani. The whole galaxy is watching. If we lose, these creatures will eventually reach Earth. Kate checked her weapons one more time. Colonel, what are our orders? Amy looked out at the beautiful crystal cities of the Zilani homeworld. Soon those cities might be nothing but consumed metal if they failed. Orders are simple, Sergeant Major. Show the galaxy what Deathworlders can do. The attack came at dawn on the second day. Zilani Secundus, the Republic's mining world, was under assault by a massive Ravager hive ship. The alien vessel was 3 times larger than anything the humans had ever seen, and it was slowly eating the planet's orbital defense stations. Captain Steve Jackson sat in the cockpit of his fighter watching the enemy through his targeting system. Behind him, 24 other human pilots waited for orders. They all knew this was probably a suicide mission, but none of them showed fear. Dragon Squadron, this is base command. Colonel Rodriguez's voice came through the radio. Remember, your job is not to win this fight. Your job is to get their attention. Understood, Colonel, Steve replied. We are going to make a lot of noise. The human fighters screamed toward the Ravager ship at full speed. To anyone watching, it looked like a desperate frontal assault. The Federation observers on the command ship shook their heads sadly, thinking the humans were about to repeat the same mistakes that had doomed previous fleets. The Ravagers noticed the approaching fighters and began firing their energy weapons. Bright beams of light reached out toward the human ships like deadly fingers. Several fighters exploded, but the rest kept coming. Dragon Leader, you are flying straight into their main guns, the Zilani flight controller warned over the radio. That is the idea, Steve said calmly. Dragons, spread out and make them work for it. The human fighters split up and began flying in wild, unpredictable patterns. They dove and rolled and spun through space like drunken birds. The Ravagers had to fire more and more weapons to try to hit them. While this was happening, Lieutenant Sarah Martinez was leading a completely different mission. Her stealth transport ship was approaching Zilani Secundus from the opposite direction, hidden behind the planet's largest moon. Okay, people, remember the plan, Sarah said to her team of 12 specialists. We have maybe 10 minutes on the surface before they notice us. That is not much time to save a world. The transport ship landed quietly on the far side of the mining planet. Sarah's team quickly unloaded their equipment and began setting up devices that looked like normal mining equipment, but were actually something much more dangerous. Dr. Rachel Green was with them, carrying a briefcase full of vials containing a special biological weapon she had created during the journey. It was designed to attack silicon-based life forms, but it had never been tested on real Ravagers. How long before this stuff starts working? Sarah asked as Rachel began injecting the weapon into the mining equipment. If my calculations are correct, about 15 minutes after they consume the infected metal, Rachel said. But remember, this is still experimental. Above them, Steve's fighter squadron was still playing their deadly game of hide-and-seek with the Ravager ship. Half of his fighters were gone now, but they had accomplished their mission. Every weapon on the hive ship was focused on the human pilots. Dragon Leader, you need to get out of there now, Colonel Rodriguez ordered. Phase 2 is beginning. Steve looked at his fuel gauge and damage indicators. His ship was barely holding together, but he had done his job. All remaining dragons, break off and return to base. The surviving fighters turned and fled at maximum speed. The Ravagers, thinking they had won, turned their attention back to consuming the orbital stations. They had no idea that they had just been tricked. On the planet's surface, Sarah's team finished their work and retreated to their transport. The infected mining equipment looked exactly like normal metal and energy sources. The Ravagers would find it irresistible. Transport team to base, we are clear of the surface, Sarah reported. The trap is set. 20 minutes later, the Ravagers began landing on Zelani Secundus. They moved in their usual organized way, consuming everything metal they could find. The infected mining equipment was among the first things they ate. Commander, Alex Turner was monitoring the enemy from the human command ship. He had been studying Ravager communication patterns for weeks, learning how their hive mind worked. Now it was time to put that knowledge to use. Communications team, begin transmission, Alex ordered. The humans began broadcasting on the same frequencies the Ravagers used to coordinate with each other. But instead of normal communication signals, they sent random noise, confusing images, and sounds that would disturb any organized mind. The effect was immediate. Ravagers on the planet's surface began moving in confused circles. Some stopped eating entirely. Others began attacking each other by mistake. It is working, Alex said with satisfaction. Their coordination is breaking down. But the real surprise was still coming. Rachel's biological weapon was beginning to take effect inside the Ravagers who had consumed the infected metal. Instead of making them stronger, the metal was making them sick. The first Ravager to be affected began moving strangely, stumbling and shaking. Then it fell over and stopped moving entirely. Within minutes, dozens of other Ravagers were showing the same symptoms. My God, Veltar said from his position on the Zelani command ship. The creatures are actually dying. On the human flagship, Colonel Rodriguez watched the battle with grim satisfaction. Phase 3, Commander Turner. Hit them with everything. We have got. This was the moment the humans had been waiting for. While the Ravagers were confused and sick, human ships moved in for direct attacks. But even now, they did not fight like the Federation forces had. Instead of neat formations and organized assaults, the human ships attacked from every direction at once. They used the Ravagers' confusion against them, striking fast and then disappearing. Before the enemy could respond, Kate Sullivan led a group of Marines in a direct assault on the Ravager hive ship. They did not try to fight their way through the main defenses. Instead, they found weak points and exploited them. Remember, we are not here to be heroes, Kate told her Marines as they cut through the ship's hull with plasma torches. We are here to break things and cause trouble. The Marines planted explosive devices throughout the hive ship, but these were not ordinary bombs. They were designed to disrupt the Ravagers' communication systems and make their coordination even worse. The battle for Zelani Secundus lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Ravager hive ship was retreating into deep space, leaving behind hundreds of dead Ravagers on the planet's surface. I do not believe it, Ambassador Thylon said, staring at the tactical displays. The creatures are actually running away. Colonel Rodriguez nodded. They have never encountered resistance like this before. Their whole strategy depends on overwhelming enemies with superior coordination and adaptation. When we disrupted both of those advantages, they did not know what to do. News of the human victory spread throughout the galaxy faster than hyperspace communication. For the first time since the Ravager threat began, an attack had been completely stopped. Other besieged worlds immediately began requesting human assistance, but Colonel Rodriguez knew they did not have enough ships and people to save everyone. We need to teach others how to fight like we do, she told her officers during the victory briefing. If we try to be everywhere at once, we will fail. The solution came from an unexpected source. Veltar approached the humans with a request that surprised everyone. Colonel Rodriguez, I want to learn your fighting methods. the Zilani commander said. My people have been pacifists for 1,000 years, but we cannot remain pacifists if we want to survive. Kate Sullivan looked at the tall, graceful alien with amusement. Commander, are you sure about this? Learning to fight like humans means learning to do things that might seem wrong to you. Sergeant Major, my world is alive because you were willing to do wrong things, Veltar replied. I think it is time we learn to do them too. And so began the strangest military training program in galactic history. Kate found herself teaching peaceful aliens how to use deception, ambush tactics, and psychological warfare. The Zilani struggled with concepts that went against everything they believed about honorable behavior. The hardest part, Kate explained to a group of Zilani volunteers, is learning to think like your enemy wants to hurt you. Most of you have never had to deal with something that actually wants to kill you. One young Zilani raised his hand. Sergeant Major, how do humans learn to fight so well? Kate smiled grimly. Son, on our world, everything wants to kill you from the day you were born. The weather, the animals, the diseases, even the plants. We learned to fight because we had to. As word of the human training program spread, volunteers arrived from other Federation worlds. Soon Kate was teaching fighting techniques to species she had never seen before. The galaxy was learning that sometimes, to preserve peace, you need people who know how to fight war. The final battle began when human scouts discovered the source of all Ravagers. Deep in uncharted space, a massive world ship drifted between the stars. It was larger than most moons and covered with strange metal growths that pulsed with dark energy. General Chris Anderson stood on the bridge of the combined human-alien fleet. 3 months had passed since the victory at Zilani Secundus. In that time, 12 different alien species had learned human fighting techniques. Now they were all here for the final assault. Intelligence reports confirm it, said Captain Elena, Rivera, the fleet's best pilot. That thing out there is the Ravager home base. Every attack across the galaxy has come from ships launched by that world ship. Chris studied the massive enemy vessel through the main view screen. How many Ravagers are we looking at? Estimates range from 50,000 to over 1 million, replied Commander Tony Blake. The good news is that our biological weapons have been effective. The bad news is that there are still too many of them. The combined fleet included human warships, Zilani science vessels, and ships from 10 other species. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, but everyone knew this would be the hardest battle they had ever fought. General Anderson, this is Commander Veltar, came a voice over the communication system. The Zilani officer had become quite good at human-style tactics over the past months. My science teams have analyzed the world ship. We believe the entire Ravager species is controlled from a central location inside that vessel. A queen? Chris asked. Something like that. If we can destroy the control center, the individual Ravagers might lose their coordination permanently. Chris nodded. It made sense. Cut off the head and the body dies. But getting to the center of that world ship would be nearly impossible. Elena, I need you to get a strike team inside that thing, Chris said to Captain Rivera. Think you can do it? Elena grinned. She had been flying dangerous missions her entire career. General, getting inside will be easy. Getting out alive might be harder. The plan they developed was typically human in its creativity and apparent insanity. Instead of trying to fight through the world ship's defenses, they would use the Ravager's own feeding behavior against them. Dr. Rachel Green had spent weeks preparing special ships that looked damaged and full of valuable metal. The Ravagers would naturally try to consume these ships, pulling them inside the world ship. But hidden inside each fake derelict were human soldiers ready to cause trouble. Remember, once you are inside, you have maybe 30 minutes before they figure out what we did, Elena told her strike team. That is not much time to find and destroy their command center. The battle began at dawn, ship time. The human-alien fleet spread out in a wide formation around the Ravager world ship. Unlike previous Federation attacks, they did not charge straight in. Instead, they began the fight with deception. Dozens of fake damaged ships drifted toward the world ship, sending distress signals and leaking metal debris into space. The Ravagers took the bait immediately, extending long mechanical arms to pull the ships inside. Phase 1 complete, Elena reported from inside one of the fake ships. We are inside the belly of the beast. While the strike teams infiltrated the world ship, the main fleet began their own attack. But this was not a conventional assault. The ships moved in unpredictable patterns, never staying in one place long enough for the Ravagers to target them effectively. Commander Alex Turner coordinated the psychological warfare from his communications ship. He had learned to speak the Ravager language during the past months, and now he used that knowledge to send confusing orders throughout their network. Enemy coordination is dropping by 30%, Alex reported. They are starting to attack each other by mistake. Inside the world ship, Elena led her team through corridors that looked like the inside of a giant machine. Everything was made of consumed metal from destroyed worlds. The walls themselves seemed to be alive, pulsing with energy. "This place gives me the creeps," said Sergeant Jim Murphy, one of Elena's Marines. "It is like being inside the stomach of some huge monster." "Stay focused," Elena replied. According to the scans, the command center should be about 2 kilometers ahead. They moved carefully through the alien corridors, avoiding Ravager patrols when possible and fighting only when necessary. The biological weapons Rachel had given them worked well in the close quarters, making any Ravagers they encountered sick and confused. After 20 minutes of careful movement, they reached a massive chamber at the heart of the world ship. In the center stood something that looked like a cross between a spider and a computer the size of a building. This was the Ravager Queen. "Sweet Mother of Earth," Jim whispered. "That thing is huge." The Queen noticed them immediately. Elena felt a strange pressure in her mind as the creature tried to take control of her thoughts. This was how the Queen controlled the entire Ravager species, through direct mental domination. But the Queen had never encountered a human mind before. What she found inside Elena's consciousness was not the ordered thoughts she expected, but a chaotic storm of memories, emotions, and survival instincts shaped by millions of years of evolution on a death world. Elena remembered every scary movie she had ever watched, every nightmare she had experienced, every moment of fear and anger and determination from her life on Earth. The Queen tried to process all of this information and could not handle it. The feedback effect was immediate. The Queen's mental scream echoed through the world ship, disrupting the control signals to every Ravager in the galaxy. For the first time in their species' history, individual Ravagers found themselves thinking their own thoughts. "The Queen is stunned," Elena reported over her radio. "Now would be a good time to blow this place up." Dr. Lisa Chang, who had been monitoring the battle from the fleet, had prepared a special weapon for exactly this moment. It was not a bomb or an energy weapon, but something much more dangerous to the Ravagers, a computer virus designed to corrupt their shared consciousness. "Uploading the virus now," Lisa reported. "Elena, you need to get out of there immediately." Elena and her team ran through the collapsing corridors of the world ship as the virus spread through the Ravager network. Behind them, the Queen writhed in agony as her mind was filled with contradictory signals and corrupted data. "Strike team to fleet. We are clear of the target," Elena reported as her ship escaped the world ship. "The package has been delivered." The effect was visible across the entire galaxy within hours. Ravager fleets that had been coordinating perfectly suddenly broke apart. Individual creatures fled in all directions, no longer controlled by the hive mind. The organized threat that had terrified the galaxy was reduced to scattered, confused animals. "Ladies and gentlemen," General Anderson announced to the combined fleet, "the war is over." The celebration lasted for days. Every world in the Federation sent messages of gratitude to the human fleet. For the first time in galactic history, humanity was seen not as a threat but as protectors. But the victory came with responsibilities. The Galactic Federation formally requested that humans establish permanent military bases throughout Federation space. They wanted human advisors to help train their forces and human commanders to coordinate defense against future threats. Admiral Jake Martinez, now promoted after the successful campaign, addressed the Federation Council on Earth's response. "We accept the responsibility," Jake said, "but we do it on our terms." Human forces will serve as protectors of the galaxy, but we will use our own methods and our own judgment. The Federation agreed immediately. They had seen what human methods could accomplish. 6 months later, human training facilities operated on dozens of worlds. Former pacifist species were learning the hard lessons of survival that Earth had taught humanity over millions of years. Kate Sullivan, now promoted to colonel, ran the largest training center on a world near the Galactic core. She watched a group of young aliens practice ambush tactics and shook her head with amusement. 6 months ago, these kids had never hurt a fly, she said to her assistant. Now they are learning to fight like Deathworlders. Is that a good thing, Colonel? The assistant asked. Kate looked up at the stars, where human patrol ships kept watch over peaceful worlds. Son, sometimes good people need to learn bad things to protect what matters. That is just the way the universe works. The final scene took place on Earth, where Jake Martinez was reviewing intelligence reports in his office. A priority alert appeared on his screen, another distress signal from the far edge of the galaxy. A new threat had appeared, something different but equally dangerous. Jake smiled grimly and reached for his communication device. This is Admiral Martinez to all human fleet commanders. We have another job to do. Across the galaxy, human ships began changing course toward the new threat. The Deathworlders were needed again, and they were ready. The universe was a dangerous place, but as long as Earth's children were out there, the peaceful species could sleep safely. Humanity had found its purpose among the stars, not as conquerors, but as the guardians who did what others could not. And in the deep darkness between the stars, potential enemies learned a new lesson. If you threaten the innocent, the Deathworlders will come for you.